kicking it back to John Flaherty, you talked a little bit about your transition from your playing days, moving up into the broadcast booth, as it were. But you also mentioned an interesting point about that transition when you went to the Red Sox. You were sensitive to your relationship with the Yankees. Would that be affected?
Sure.
As a broadcaster now, does it impact your work at all, the fact that the team basically sponsors your network, the team is your network? Or do you have to be aware of that? And how much do ratings impact what you have to do and how you perform your job on a daily basis?
Well, I'll start with the second half first. I don't pay attention to ratings at all. I'm doing a game. My focus is the 3 hours, the 9 innings, and doing my job. Flip worries about ratings, hears about ratings. I'll hear about ratings somewhere out there. But when I'm doing a game, I don't think about who's watching. I think about doing the best job that I can do for the 3 hours. I think one of the things that helps me growing up in West Nyack and in Rockland County and being a New Yorker is I know that the New York market, you can't BS these people. They're very passionate baseball fans. They're very knowledgeable baseball fans. So if you see a play happening in front of you, you can't sugarcoat it for Yankee fans. They're going to see right through you. So I always have that feeling when I'm in the booth that I have to be as honest as I can be. And sometimes that means that you have to be critical of a player. Sometimes it means that you have to be critical of one of your friends, Jorge Posada, in my case. But that's part of the job and something that you have to do. And one of the things that Flip has taught me in this business is you can be critical of anybody out on the field, a player, a manager, a coach, anybody. But you can also balance it on the other side. You can make a point that's negative, and on the way out of your point, you maybe can give a reason why that's somewhat of a positive. Like I spoke about today in class, David Robertson has 4 outings in a row, and he gives it up his 4th outing and has a tough night. You have to acknowledge that he got beat up tonight, and this wasn't his best night. But on the way out, you can balance it and say he pitched 4 days in a row, he's got to be fatigued. And I actually had David come up to me the day after one of those games and thank me for acknowledging how many innings or how many pitches he had thrown in 4 days. So to Flip's point, you have to call it like you see it, but you don't have to crucify a guy while he's down. You can balance it on the way out. So there is that balance of being honest, being fair, but also understanding as an ex-player what they're going through and how hard the game can be.
And people who take the crucifixion route inevitably are making it about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
This is all about, this is what I think, and I think this guy's horrible, or the team has to do this, or they need to do that, or need to fire this one, they need to do this, whatever the remedy is for the problem. It's sort of like, yes, you're paid for your opinions, yes, you're paid to be a commentator, for your observations, for your experience, from understanding what it means to play the game of baseball. You're paid for a lot of things. And you can be critical, because you are the expert. So you have a right to be critical, but at what point, how far do you take that criticism? You've got a fan base that's sitting at home. People have gone to work all day. This is their entertainment. This is their relief. In some cases, some of the older people, they look forward all day long. I mean, Mr. Steinbrenner once said to me that in some cases, people's lives, their day is made or broken by what the Yankees do that day. If the Yankees did well, those people had a really great day. If the Yankees didn't do well, they didn't have such a good day. And, I know that sounds a little trite, but the reality is it's true. There are people in any sport that are so passionate about their team. It's tribal. Sports is tribal. It's an extension of who you are, who we are as a society, and people get caught up in their teams. You go to a game, they've got jerseys on, they're buying hats, they're doing whatever. I used to say to people, wow, there's a lot of people named Jeter here. You see Jeter, and everybody's got a number 2. It's like, well, I guess he must resonate. But, again, I mean, if you go back to one of the great moments that I've ever seen in this business, and it was a game that meant absolutely nothing. It was a regular season game. It was the last game Jeter played at home. In terms of its significance in the standings, the Orioles were, 12, 13 games ahead of the Yankees. They already clinched the American League East. Didn't mean much to them, and there's Jeter in his last game, but he gets a single to win a game in the bottom of the 9th inning. I mean, I have never seen such emotion. I mean, I've covered a lot of events. It was as emotional a thing as I've probably been around. And it was, what did the game mean? It didn't mean anything, but emotionally to our fan base, the people watching, It was everything. We weren't going to the postseason. It was our World Series. And there was a chance for those people, everybody sitting there, and people at home to say goodbye to one of the most beloved players, to their Mickey Mantle. Every generation has a Babe Ruth, has a Joe DiMaggio, has a Mickey Mantle. This was this generation's iconic star. If you're a Yankee fan, it was Derek Jeter. A lot of great stars, too, in the Yankee generation. A lot of great stars, but no one bigger than Jeter. And Jeter never won any. Was Jeter ever an MVP? No. Jeter ever win a batting title? No. But Jeter knew how to win. He knew how to win. You look at the big plays that in Yankee history over the last, whatever it was, 15, 20 years, Derek Jeter's in the middle of almost all of them. Whether he's base running or making the flip play to the plate or, hitting a home run in extra innings to be called Mr. November in a World Series game, or the great diving play in the stands he made against the Red Sox that was so inspirational and told you everything about that he would sacrifice his body, everything in order to win. When other guys, go near the stands and they do the old lay business because they don't want to get hurt, or God knows, I can't do that. Guy had a passion to win. How do you not respect that? How do you not love that? How do you not admire that?
And with that, that's a good transition for both of you, actually. Especially working for a team with the cachet of the New York Yankees, both locally and really globally. How do you prepare for a game? What goes into that preparation behind the scenes and in front of the camera, if you will, if you share a little bit of that?
Yeah, from my standpoint, it changes whether I'm doing a game in the studio or I'm doing a game at the stadium. I was saying today in class, living in New York, living in Pearl River, reading the papers, keeping up with the Yankees. I don't work every game, I work about 70 games, but the Yankee part of it is out there and I know everything that's going on with the team. My challenge is preparing for the opposing team and making sure I'm doing as much research as I can when they come into town. I get probably the best work that I do is at the stadium during batting practice, talking to players, talking to coaches, some of the connections and relationships that I have, finding out what's going on behind the scenes. I gather all of that information so that at 7 o'clock when I sit down and I watch the game, I have everything in my head. I have notes written that I try not to have in front of me so that I can be more conversational. But all that preparation hopefully will come out in the game. The games that we do that are 3-2 and it's a Red Sox-Yankee game, those are the easy games. All the preparation that you do probably won't come into play. It's the Pittsburgh Pirates coming in and the Yankees are winning 13-1 in the 5th inning. And your boss wants you to keep the ratings because he doesn't want people to turn away from the TV. That's when you need all of your information to try to keep the game interesting for the last 4 innings. Those are the challenging nights. I would say 50% of our games are easy. It's right in front of you. It's strategy. It's a lot of fun to talk about. The other 50% are a little bit more challenging. You got to make it a little bit more entertaining for the fans.
Well, a lot of what John says is absolutely on the mark. I've also always believed that you should let the game come to you. Don't force things, don't force stories into a game when you don't need to do that. The game will tell you a narrative. If the Yankees hit 4 home runs in a game and win the game, 6-5, well, the 4 home runs were the storyline of the game, with the Yankee power. If the Yankees lose a game, 3-2 and they allowed 3 unearned runs because they made 4 errors, then the lack of Yankee defense was the story of that game. If the Yankee starters don't do well and the bullpen comes in and holds the fort and the Yankees are able to rally, well, the story then is the starting pitching didn't do well, the middle relief did great, kept the Yankees in the game until the offense could rally and carry the Yankees. Let the story come to you. That's part of what a telecast is, but the original question was about preparation. I will give you a very short answer, then I'll give you a little longer answer, but I won't go too long. The short answer is, I'm standing in Fenway Park in 1986, and the Mets are playing the Red Sox. And I had one of those rare moments I could actually take in where I am. You would think that you could do this, but you can't. Because there's so many demands on your time when you're doing a big event, any kind of event, between the pre-tapes, that we have all the sound that we need. Let me look at the graphics. Let me look at the reads that we have to do for enhancements. Let me do the commercial reads, the promo reads. Let's look and make sure the announcers see the footage. Have they seen the footage they're going to do in the opening? Have they seen the graphic? Have they done this? Have they done that? Do we have this? Do we have that? Yeah, and then the salespeople going, well, so-and-so's going to be here in the 5th inning. Yeah, better put him on camera because he's the president of the network and he'll get scream and yell if he's not on, so find time to put him on. Whatever. you get the demands are so overwhelming that I used to say to people, the best time for me was when that door could be closed and we could just do the game. You don't have to worry about all the peripheral stuff that goes around it. And so I was managed to go out on the field and exhale for about 2 minutes. I was just looking at the green monster, and some reporter, which was going to break my little relaxation spell, my exhale, if you will. He's a good guy. Comes over to me and he says to me, "Do you have a minute?" And I really wanted to say, to be honest with you, no. But I said, I knew the guy pretty well, good guy. I said, all right. I said, but I really want to do this quickly, if you don't mind. He said, sure. And I said, so he asked me a question. He said, how long have you been preparing for this? And I'm looking at the wall and I said, my whole life. Because my whole life I've been preparing to stand there and look at that wall and be in a World Series and being a producer of a World Series. You know, I produced actually one or two before then, but it's an ongoing build. Like I said to you, it's a wall. It's a brick upon another brick upon another brick upon another brick. That's how you build a career, and that's how you build the next step. So that's I needed to tell you that story, so I could tell you basically how you prepare is you prepare your whole life about the general. Okay, and then if you want to talk about specific preparation, then it's specific game preparation. And I always felt that the best way to do that was to have a group discussion. It's not always the same. You can't always get the announcers, the producer, director, the pregame, the postgame, the game people all together at once and have a massive conversation, which really would be great. Where you could sit there, that's called a production meeting. And that's not the easiest thing to have when everybody's got on so many disparate schedules. But I always felt it was great to call a guy before a series or after a series and say, hey, this was a really great point. You want to talk about, I did this in a seminar yesterday. And 20 minutes after the seminar ended, all hell broke loose. And it was actually over a story that we were talking about. I said to somebody, don't just sell me don't sell me the Yankees, okay? The Yankees are what we do, but the other team is there. You're selling stars, you sell storyline, and you sell strategy. What's the strategy being employed? Oh, here's the shift again for the 78,000th time in the game. We're getting a shift. What's the strategy? Well, Joe is going to try to get the lead. He's going to play situational baseball, and then he's going to come in and he's going to do matchups, and he's going to do whatever, and then they're going to get to their closer, and there's a certain amount of, well, do we hit and run? Do we bunt? Do we steal? What do we do? That's strategy, okay? That's in a game. Stars. Never go wrong talking about stars. What sells on television? Why do you watch television? Why do you watch? You could watch Game of Thrones because you really like it. It's a good show. It's well written. I happen to like it. I'm big on dragons, so what the hell? It's perfect. It's got a lot of dragons, and I like that kind of stuff. So it's a great show, But ultimately, at the end of the day, I like Peter Dinklage, and I like some of the people in the show. So stars. What made MASH the biggest show on television for so many years? Alan Alda. Stars. Go back at stars, strategy, storyline. As I talked to you before, what's the storyline of the game? We went through that. So those three things are the cornerstone of baseball coverage. And if you can have a discussion beforehand, Yankees or Orioles, very quickly. Yankees are playing the Orioles. Well, let's see. There's Joe Girardi, there's Buck Showalter. There's the standings. There's the Orioles 5 games ahead of the Yankees. It's August. It's not the end of the world, but the Yankees they can't let the Orioles run away with this. If they're going to do some damage, they have to do it now. So the Yankees, these are important games for the Yankees. They're important games for the Orioles as well. So it's an important series. You got the two managers. You've got Manny Machado coming back from an injury. You've got Chris Reedus coming back from an injury. You have the Baltimore pitching staff. You have Chris Davis coming back from his I guess it was some sort of what would we call it, amphetamine suspension?
Stimulant.
A stimulant suspension, we'll call it.
Adderall.
For Adderall, right, which I know everybody in the TV business is on anyway, and it helps them. In a different way, we can do it, it's okay. We don't have to play. That's for ADD. Did I get out of that? Did I sufficiently explain that? But again, so what's the storyline? So you talk storyline, you talk the game. Talk about Chris Davis, you talk about Weeders, you talk about Manny Machado, you talk about Adam Jones, who's always in the MVP conversation, right? I'm just throwing out names. And we'll sit there and we'll talk about stuff, and we'll talk about the Yankee players, and that begets stuff. And you would be surprised in a 3-game series how many times the points that you'll make collectively in a discussion will be brought up into those games. It would amaze you. Almost every point that either I would bring up, or John would bring up, or Bill Bowen, our game producer, or Jared, our pregame producer, or anybody else in the telecast brings up, inevitably, many of those points they know. Some of those things, might escape them. Some of the things, oh, you know what, you're right, I forgot about that. It's a collective brain, sit down, brain picking session. And that's, to me, is how you prepare best.